We can see our screen.
Perfect. And that's not the screen you want to see. So we'll just do, you got to love Microsoft PowerPoint. Just a few technology challenges this morning, as Jamie can attest to. So
Well,
thank you,
that's always
everyone.
the case when you have a technology session. You have more technology problems than any other session.
So before I introduce myself, what I want to talk about is modernizing business. A lot of the disruption and volatility of today's market are hallmarks of what's happening here today. There's a new normal. This pandemic has taught us a lot of how to operate differently. And one of the things that I hear from so many clients now is they want to do things different. Now is the time. Digital transformation, people are ready now and they're looking for new solutions, and it's not easy because we're being bombarded with so many sources of different information and different ways of doing things. So hopefully today our presentation can help you walk through some of those. Today's finance environment, and what we're going to talk about isn't just for finance and accounting, it's for business leaders as well. But some of the key facts is, in a finance and accounting organization, 65% of your activities are processing transactions, where you're looking at 19% are focused on reporting and control. So that doesn't leave much left for decision support, and financial management is managing the people you work for, the most valuable assets in your organization. So there's a lot of opportunity to enhance not just finance and accounting, but your business organization. And that's through a combination of people, processes, and technology. Myself, I've been with Lumina Consulting for almost 17 years now, and I've started a new venture, Black Owl Lease Accounting, which we'll talk about a bit later in the demo. But I'm a CPA by profession, extensive experience in ERP selection implementations, mergers, acquisitions, corporate governance. But one of the things that we're seeing now is a lot more people are reaching out to us and other accounting professionals and saying, hey, we need help. And it may not just be changing the system, it's optimizing your current system. It's optimizing the processes around those systems. I'm just going to be. So reasons you may want to look for improvements in your financial organization is you've got insufficient or unstable tools. There's inaccurate sources of data coming into your system. You might be relying on third parties to provide you other information. Good example is for organizations with marketing and sales. Your information could come from completely different sources of data. One of the things that we see a lot and deal with is inconsistent business practices. And for small organizations, this isn't a big concern, but when you start getting into mergers and acquisitions, this is where you start seeing this impact. You're bringing two completely different business cultures into one. And a lot of times those practices, people do things differently. Or there could be different practices around how you're using your financial systems. Lots of opportunities. So I'm not going to go through all of these things, but there's numerous ways to improve your financial organization. Something that I know Amplify is definitely working with clients to do, and something, at Lumina, we've done that as well. So best practices in a modern business environment is, number one is focusing on talent. And I'm going to talk a bit about what you're looking for in your business leaders and your accountants of the future. The other thing we talked about is aligning your business processes to the systems and tools you have. Something that talked about a lot, and some people do it excellently, but a lot of time there's opportunity to improve. Going to talk about the next generation of ERP systems, and also is how you can work with your current system. As I said, health checks have been something that we've been doing more and more of lately. People not happy with the configuration of their system, or the other is they're looking for a new and efficient system. People don't want the big SAPs of the world now. They want something out of the box, easy to configure with standard workflows, um, something that makes their life easier and aligns the way they operate their business. And then we're going to talk about a word that's overused a lot is the digital transformation. What is digital transformation? What is big data? And some reporting tool options. Um, One of the big things for talent is moving from scorekeepers to financial partners. And going back to the original slide I showed, where 65% of an accounting organization is focused on processing transaction. If you can streamline that processing of transactions, that's going to give you a lot more opportunity to become more finance business partners or business leaders. And what are the top skills for the business leader and accountant of the future? You know, communication, leadership, critical thinking. I've seen a lot of this changing, I would say, in the last 5 years. One of the things that's been asked of a lot more of everyone in an organization is be a little more tech savvy. Hey, we've got a lot of data. How do we analyze it? Power BI is becoming a well-used tool. And what that means is people are taking information, they're trying to slice and dice it differently, use that to help make business decisions. Critical thinking, why I highlighted that one is we can't be the accountants of the past. We've got to be able to look at things differently and be willing to question saying, geez, I don't like how that system's doing it. Is there a better way of doing it? Is it something wrong with the system, or do I have the wrong system? And maybe helping you justify changing from that system to a new environment. The other part we talked about is business process. And and it isn't just optimizing the process, is making it as efficient and as timely as possible. People, you hear a lot is we want to change our month end close cycle from 5 days to 4 days, or from 2 weeks or 3 weeks down to a week. It all depends on your organization and what you do. A good example I recall back in the day is when I was with Canadian Occidental, which you may know as Nexon or CNOC. They wanted to go from a 7-day close to a 4-day close, and all systems closed, and everyone in accounting was freaking out. It was pretty easy how they did it. How we accomplished that is we did a lot more accruals, but there was a lot more analysis after the fact of those accruals to the actuals. So, accelerating the finance processes. So what does that actually mean? So you're taking a manually executed activity. People are used to putting it in Excel and manually reviewing it. This is where you're leveraging technology is you're trying to automate that. And that automation could be gathering the data. It could be performing the calculations. You're leveraging tools to help you improve your finance processes. And what goes along with that is now there's an opportunity to go along is approve those and review those. So use automation, use workflows to start streamlining just not the gathering and the reporting of the information, but also the approval. But one of the things that happens with, you're going to hear IoT or robotic process automation is trying to put some black magic in there. And we hear this a lot at Lumina is, oh, we want to use uh, Bitcoin. We're looking for all these other ways that's going to streamline our accounting. Well, sometimes having faster information doesn't all necessarily mean right information. So we're going to talk a bit about ERPs. And so what's the next generation in ERPs? So this comes from Lumina Consulting. What we've seen is there's been little change over functionality over the last 10 years, and we continue to see the next 10 years our ERP systems what you see now is probably what you're going to see in the future. There's not going to be, it's going to be easier to use, easier to configure, better workflows, better reporting. All of that is being growing as the systems, but there's nothing, accounting is debits and credits. So is there going to be something special that you're going to see in 10 years from now? No, the look and feel may be different, but the back end database and how they all work is probably going to be the same. One of the things that we're seeing now is a lot more plug and play, where you've got strong ERP systems like Oracle, NetSuite, uh, the SAPs, but some functionality is moving outside. Good example is payroll. People have trusted ADP and Ceridian for years to do their payroll processing, the reporting outside of the system, and then interface it in. So we're seeing a lot more of that functionality. Plant maintenance, another good example is sales. There's great sales, customer relationship management tools, sales tools. Those are good, they're specialized applications that stay outside the system, but need to interface in for invoicing, AR, customer management. Uh, One of the things that we're seeing more and more use in ERPs is a lot more workflows and triggers than we've seen in the last few years. I go back 10, 15 years ago. It's amazing what can be done with workflows out of the box right now in a lot of these systems, where before it was months of people paying developers to build these custom workflows. Good, another question that we see, what's the future look like, is who's going to be left standing? Is it SAP, Microsoft, Oracle? Will there be someone new? The big players will always be there, but we see a lot of the smaller specialty ones come and go quite frequently and start consolidating. Microsoft and Oracle have done a lot of great things in the last couple of years in SaaS solutions. That are giving them more advances in the marketplace than what SAP's had over the years. So, 3 questions can be asked when you're optimizing your financial systems for your organization. Does my accounting or ERP need to be upgraded or replaced? And this is something we can talk definitely more in our panel discussion later, as when you look at the opportunity. But a lot of times, once you get past that decision, is do I need to replace it or do the next version? Then there's the other thing that, as I said earlier at the kickoff, is the health checks. What we're seeing now is a lot of people are taking a step back and saying, hold on, maybe my system's good enough, I just need to reconfigure it or align it better, or maybe use some additional functionality, or not use some functionality in there. So again, this goes back to the health check. So it's a lot, it all ties into optimizing your financial processes, which leads to stronger organizations, which increases cash flow, which we're all trying to strive for. So when you're looking at evaluating your current system, what are the things to do? And I've alluded to a few times is existing configurations. And I'm going to go back to an SAP implementation we did. We put it in on time, on budget. We were very satisfied with the results, but there's just a few little hiccups, just a few things that just didn't sit right. And one of the things, for example, is it created negative depreciation. And we discovered that in the first quarter end. An asset was depreciated and all of a sudden we see a negative, and it added. And we went, whoa, what the heck is this? And we dug back, and the implementation partner says, oh yeah, that's how companies do it. Once an asset's depreciated, it starts adding back. And we went, hold on, that's having an IT guy doing it versus without any help of accountants testing that and reviewing the logic. So from that little thing, we spawned a separate review of the configuration from an independent third party. Ended up, we had 70 items we recommended to improve the configuration. And this was just a brand new system. So we've used that model to other companies where people are ready to throw out their old ERP system, and coming in with people not just with your IT people, but with their business advisor, some accountants to come along, have been able to help optimize that. Another area we see a lot in your current system is we got to throw it out, the reporting isn't right. Some solutions we've seen is, well, maybe we change your chart of accounts or some of the hierarchies of how information rolls up. And we've been able to improve a lot of existing systems with those initiatives. A lot more is, automation, security. A lot of people trying to throw out systems because they don't like their security or their workflows. And there's some add-on tools. There's a lot of opportunities to optimize what you have. As I started out at the start talking about digital transformation and what does that mean? And every single person you talk to talks about the digital transformation and how it's going to make life so much better. So from Lumina, we do an annual survey with clients. And what it's showing is, with this survey, everyone's thinking that digital transformation could be game changers. When we dig behind the scenes, when we talk to these clients, well, what do you think digital transformation is? A little hint of what we're seeing this year in the 2021 survey that we're just wrapping up now is a lot of people think they achieve digital transformation by moving to the cloud. They're moving their applications or hosting in their server or on site to Amazon or Azure, and they're saying, hey, we're part of the digital transformation. Well, it goes a lot more than moving it to your IT infrastructure to the cloud. It's improving your effectiveness within the business, leveraging tools and technologies to achieve better performance across the organization, not just having IT run a cloud application. So one of the things, what I'm part of is trying to modernize finance. So this is where, we've talked about configuration. We're trying to streamline applications. It all comes back to improving the productivity of accounting, removing the manual accounting, improving the financial close process, running tasks as they happen versus waiting month end to do calculations and spreadsheets. Increasing your balance sheet integrity, centralized data. For the lease accounting, one of the things we're trying to send the message is manage those assets as if you would have purchased them. Too often leases are written off as an item on the balance sheet. Well, now you have to report it on, written off on your income statement. Now you've got to set up an asset and liability because you do have a financial commitment. Even though you're leasing it, it is still an asset that you're managing. And too often what we've seen is people are ignoring that opportunity to manage assets with better information. I alluded to before is we've seen a lot of in the past opportunities where people have used payroll for years, HR information, CRMs, B2B tools for open invoice, workflow. It's quite common, but what we're seeing a lot more trend is planning and consolidation. People are using other tools outside of their core ERP and they're saying, hey, I can take this and I can put it in another tool to get results. I want to share an example with a client I worked with a few years ago, a large energy company, and I was in doing some IFRS accounting work, totally different hat and they asked me to they said, oh, we're excited, we're going to be moving to this Hyperion and it's going to manage all of our consolidations. And I asked a simple question, well, what else are that's a pretty expensive tool that you're buying. And one of the things that they said, oh, but we can take information from other systems and merge it. We're going to take land system and put it with our financial system. So that's going to justify. And I asked the simple question again is, okay, what are you going to do aligning your land system with your financial? Well, we don't know, but the vendor told us it's going to be really good that we can do it. So I helped them go through that, a high level evaluation. Well, I ended up saving the client $1 million. They realized that they could achieve what they were trying to do with their existing system and bringing an advisor to write some new reports for them. versus find a completely new solution. And it came from just asking a few simple questions. So, what does, the Lumina health check look like when we come in looking at an existing organization? We're looking at that, we're helping you look at your skills. What do you have the right staff? Maybe it's a staffing issue that an outside eyes critical thinking can give you some second opinion. We're looking at the processes. I talked a lot about that is, the goal is taking complex processes and trying to make them less complex and using tools and systems around you. Look at your closing processes. Definitely, is there opportunity for improvement? Is there automation improvements from some of the tasks that are being done, not just in accounting, but outside the organization? Whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's operations, so many things. Accounting is the final set of books, but there's so many opportunities for process improvement throughout an organization. Talked about the ERP systems. We're looking at the complexity of data. Is there reconfiguration opportunities? Is there opportunities to streamline your master data, including your chart of accounts? The digital transformation. Is there new tools that you can use to leverage to make that ERP system that you have or that you're considering purchasing better? And big data. There's a lot of people wanting to get big data, looking for new reporting tools. So those are some of the things that are part of our health check. So, your path to the future in finance is, define your vision, assess your current state, the traditional fit gap, identify enablers, which is people, processes, and tools. And too many times we see we need a new system. Well, what comes with that new system should be some good processes, and then create a roadmap to execute. So, thank you.
That was awesome, Greg. And I think for the non-accountants in the room, this path to a future of finance would work really well within those functions and departments as well. So really good examples. We're going to move into our panel so that we can have a chat about what Greg was just talking about. Quick reminder that for panels, it's often best to use the gallery view, or sorry, the speaker view. So if you go to the right-hand corner where you have your view option and you pick speaker view, you might have a better experience within the panel. So a couple quick introductions and then we'll get started. So as you've already met Greg, who of course is the co-founder of Black Owl, which is an accounting system. Over the years, we've done a ton of the new IFRS lease standard at both my previous life at Big Four and here at Amplify. And one thing we found was that the systems that were available were either great for operators or great for accountants, and very few worked for everyone. So really excited to see a local technology company like Black Owl out there. And of course, Greg also works with Lumina. So excited to have you on the panel, Greg.
Thank you.
And you had a chance to introduce yourself already, so I'll move to Adam. So Adam is a very old friend of mine from NPAC, a great friend of Amplify, and we're excited to have him here as a practical person who's been on the other side of a consultant. And so really excited to have Adam speak to us. Adam, if you want to give a quick intro.
Sure, thanks, Jamie. I guess you've dated me there by placing me at NPAC, so that's the personal side of the introduction. Professionally, Jamie alluded to this, my background, 20-year practicing CPA. My background has a lot to do with business process optimization, system implementation, system integrations, a lot through mergers and acquisitions and different transactions like that, from everything from turning around underperforming departments to more larger strategic initiatives, org structure design, and large scale technology transformation programs.
Great to have you, Adam. And of course, Anto, who is a new member of Amplify, leading Amplify Tech, which is our NetSuite partner division that we are launching. And you guys are the first to hear about it as AHA members. Super excited to be able to tell you that we're a NetSuite partner and that we're implementing licensing and consulting in the area of NetSuite. So Anto, without further ado, if you could give an intro. And of course, Anto and I go way back as well. He was one of the only IT people I've ever worked with that made an experience a good experience. And we had such a successful implementation together that we actually eliminated an entire job and moved it from a full-time 40-hour plus 40 hours per week plus assignment to less than 6 hours in a month. And so that was my experience working with Anto. And I am so excited that he joined Amplify to give experiences like that to our clients and our network and our community. So Anto, if you want to introduce yourself.
For sure. Thank you, Jamie, for the intro. So hello, everyone. I'm Anto Pazani, and I lead Amplify's technology service line. My background has all been in technology in different roles like a developer, business analyst, project manager, agile coach, and similar roles. And before Amplify Tech, I spent time in Deloitte Consulting in some high-profile ERP projects across North America. I'm a project management professional and also certified in scaling agile for enterprises. And as Jamie mentioned, we've worked together at Alberta Central before, and where she was a business leader and I was in IT project delivery, and we did have some successful projects there. Also had an opportunity to work with Jesse and Jamie at Deloitte for a short while before they started Amplify Advisors. We were always looking for opportunities to work together again, and it was just a matter of time, and we saw a need with Amplify technology. So here we are. On a personal level, I have 2 daughters, 18 months and 5 years, and I just spend all my time outside work with them.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, so today's panel is really about helping the business leaders and CPAs that are AHA members take responsibility and look for opportunity in regards to their technology and automation. So we had a really good chance for Greg to kickstart that conversation. And today we're going to really try and focus on quick wins from our 3 panel members in terms of tangible ways that we can help you with your health checks and your system selections and your system optimization, as Greg pointed out. So we're going to start with Adam. And Adam, when I was talking to you and frankly asking you, should I hire Anto? Should Jesse and I take the deep dive into NetSuite? What do you think about technology consulting? You said something that really resonated with me. And you said, Jamie, if you're going to be successful with clients, the best way to have a project be successful is to look at it as a business project and stop having people look at things as an IT project. What did you mean by that, Adam? And what quick wins have you experienced in regards to looking at those projects that you've done so successfully as actual business projects as opposed to IT projects?
Sure. First, I guess I'd say that's a very insightful comment that I made. And this isn't meant to be a knock against technology professionals, IT professionals, or IT consultants in any way. In fact, it's more the opposite. I mean, when we look at transformations, and Greg touched on this, they really have 3 core elements, which is people, processes, and systems, right? And I believe you can have transformations that only have a people element to it, or they have a people and process element to it, but never just a technology element. So that should frame sort of your mindset in approaching this and saying, okay, well, if it's not just about technology, then what are we trying to accomplish here, right? After all, technology is meant to enable the business, right? And so, coming back to my comment, Jamie, I guess what I was getting at there is your technology initiatives technology should not be the solution. It should not drive the answer, but rather you should be focusing on what are the business outcomes, right? And people are what you start with. Right. So I think that's more what I was getting at to that comment. In practice, where I've seen this, I guess, maybe I'll give an example of not so much of where it's been successful, because I think any successful project you've done in technology has really, maybe it wasn't intentionally, but it was planned that way, it was executed that way. But I'll give you an example of where I've seen this not be successful. I've seen this a number of times. in practice, and that's where it's either planned as not being just a technology initiative, but at the end of the day, the business just doesn't show up, right? And so the IT team or the consultants, they're left with either full scope or given a narrow scope, which is just you take care of the technology piece and we'll take care of all the rest. And it just doesn't happen. In either case, the business doesn't show up, and the expectation is implement the solution, hand it over to us, and we'll see if that's successful, right? And I think that's where generally I've seen things fall off, right? So this is more a call to the business, from an IT person's perspective, that's finance, if it's operations, supply chain, whoever that is, to say, you need to show up, right?
That's awesome. From a personal example, the first implementation that Amplify did, Jesse had to be the IT guy, the implementer, basically had to wear every hat. And I didn't show up. And guess what? He had to redo it. So we've had that failure internally. And I think it's a good reminder that you can't just expect the IT people to get it done and then and not have impact from collaboration from you. So, Anto, Adam didn't really insult IT people, but he kind of wanted to, you could tell. So as an IT person, what are your thoughts on what Adam said, and how do you mitigate those risks that Adam mentioned?
I actually am aligned with Adam's comment. The fact is, when transformations are started, they're usually because of certain business needs. So I believe business has to lead it. But for an engagement this big to be successful, it also has to be a collaboration between business and IT, exactly to all the points that were mentioned earlier. I think each side has value to add to discussions and brings unique perspectives that without those skill sets in a project, it's hard to achieve success. I'm going to go back to the agile methodology just because I'm good at it. Agile's the most adopted methodology with technology projects with nowadays. And one of Agile's 12 principles states that business people and developers must work together on a daily basis on projects. And this is a move away from the times when we had business providing inputs in status meetings or just participating as subject matter experts. So we're saying IT and business has to work together. So I'm going to go with the diplomatic answer to say no more IT projects and no more business projects. It's a collaborative project.
That's awesome, Anto. So Greg, I'm going to turn to you. You've been a consultant. You've obviously run, I would assume, lots of successful projects and probably some that didn't meet expectations for the exact reasons that Anto and Adam just talked about, where business didn't show up or it was framed as a business project or an IT project or what have you. We know that the reality is that 49% of implementations are done on time, which means the majority aren't done on time. We also know that 82% achieve the return on investment that was expected on the time that they spend. And half expect to lower costs. They want to improve metrics. They want efficiencies. The expectation list is a laundry list. And you talked about a lot of it in your presentation. As a consultant who's had successful projects, what do you do to manage those expectations and to bring the success rate higher when you're involved?
Yeah, so thanks, Jamie. It all starts with the initial planning. So one of the things that I stress to clients is simplification. Keep it simple. Limit your scope. Look for phases. And so what do I mean by that? I'm going to go to a large multinational. And one of the things that we were doing is it was in Canada, US, Mexico. And what they're saying is, what we're going to do first is we are going to roll it out, just the GL across all the countries. Then we're going to bring in the sales. Then we're going to bring in plant maintenance. So they're phasing it that way. And, I was pushing saying, let's look at it a little different. Let's forget Mexico. Let's leave that because there's a lot more complexities with their VAT taxes and all of that. So supply chain is quite different. So I convinced them to scope that out. But what we focused on is, what can we do? We need the core financials working first. Let's pick one plant facility to do the plant maintenance. Let's pick something that we can be successful within the time frame that we've got, and then phase out all those. So then the Mexico came as a separate phase, but additional plants came later on. So, that's one of the things, is looking at your phase as simplification. The other thing is, and it's used too much, is no customization, go core functionality. And I can't keep stressing, and it's almost something you have to throughout the project, is you're always enforcing. No, remember we agreed we're going to go out of the box how AP works. No, you remember we agreed we're going to keep doing that. It starts creeping as people start seeing the system and seeing it differ from their current business practice. They're going to go back to old habits. Hey, can you talk to the Antos of the world? Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you sneak this in for me? Those are the successes, is stopping that scope creep and looking at how you set up the project for success.
I love that, Greg. It actually goes back to a lot of the NetSuite training that we've been getting, where they use a stairway approach. So you use the word phased approach. NetSuite uses the stairway approach. And it kind of goes back to an example where back when we were at Big Four, we had an opportunity to do a second or third phase with a company in regards to the finance function and some specific needs they had in regards to accruals, actually, which you earlier gave a great example of accrual. So Jesse and I were leading that project with a pretty big company in town. And it was interesting because they had made the decision to do a phased approach of an implementation of a very big system. And all of the consultants that bid on it that didn't win had bid transformation, and frankly thought they were idiots for doing this phased stairway type approach. And Jesse and I were just amazed at this group as we participated in phase. I don't know if we were a part of phase 2 or phase 3. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. But we were part of this phase, and what we had saw was, unlike other implementations, the people were happy. The people were actually positive about their implementation and system. Very few people had quit since the implementation. It was honestly a really successful Calgary story, and you don't see much of it because a lot of consultants don't do what you just said, Greg, and that obviously Lumina does, which is encourage that phased approach, encourage that best practice and lack of customization. And obviously Anto is going to be doing that through Amplify Tech as well. Adam, from your point of view, what do you think about this? You've obviously done more than one implementation. I'm sure you've done some phase, some transformational. What are your questions for Greg in regards to how he just described managing expectations, or what are your thoughts or stories on that?
Yeah, I think Greg touched on some really important things, and there's the two perspectives, right? There's the internal and the external perspective. And, there's a lot of reasons. I was actually really surprised, Jamie, by how high those statistics were. I've seen lower numbers, and maybe that's just from my experience, but there's a lot of reasons why projects and transformations fail. Governance, poor change management. I touched on one, that just the business committing and showing up. One thing I would say is to give yourself the best chance of success. If you're committing to a project and you're investing in it, then resource it appropriately. It's not something that your best people can just do on the side of their desk. Give them an opportunity to fully participate in that. If they need to, resource it appropriately, backfill for them. It will pay dividends in the long run. And the last thing I would say too is having a roadmap is extremely important. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're committing to a $500-600 million ERP big bang implementation, but the idea of executing things in sprints to add value, incremental value, I think is an important concept to try to apply. And along with that, making sure that you're not treating the symptom, right? But you're getting to the heart of the problem. You're getting to the heart of the issue and treating the problem and not just the symptom.
That's awesome. We might have to replace the word phases, Greg, and stairway Anto with sprints. It sounds way more fun and intense and rewarding. So sprints, I like, Adam. So Anto, turning to you, obviously today's the launch of Amplify Tech to our AHA members. And, when Jesse and I decided to launch Amplify Tech and partner with NetSuite, it really came down to two things. One was we were doing a lot of agnostic system selections, both in our old days at Big Four and here at Amplify. And we were constantly seeing NetSuite winning. And we, frankly, Jesse and I like to join winning teams. So we wanted to join the winning team, which kept being NetSuite. But, and actually even from a personal perspective, I didn't put NetSuite into my CFO client. And the reason I didn't was because I couldn't find a local Western Canadian partner to help me. And that scared me. And this is a pre-COVID world where I wanted to work in person with people. I was scared of flights. I was scared of foreign exchange. I was scared of the costs of not having a local partner just going out of control. And so I ended up with Microsoft, and now have a lot of regrets actually on that, which is another driver of partnering with NetSuite. So we saw that NetSuite was a winning team, but wasn't always selected because there wasn't a local partner. So when we go to those system selections, Greg gave a lot of great advice, and the presentation will definitely be shared with everyone of how to select a system and how to look at, you know, that future desired state, compare that to the current state, figure out the gaps and create a roadmap and look at people, process, and technology. And Adam, you re-emphasized a lot of that as well. So Anto, what would you have to add in terms of things that you would think about when doing a system selection so that you can have an agnostic view of which system actually works for you, whether you're in a large entity, a mid-market, or a small growing scale-up?
I have 3 things to share today, Jamie. I think those are things that haven't been touched so far in our discussion. So you know, we'll go through them one by one. The first big one I find is, you know, for clients is to find a balance between the value and the need. If you need a tractor for farming, don't go buying a Ferrari and try and fit it with a plow. The reverse is also true, where you don't want a tractor and assume you can customize it to act like a Ferrari. The key, I believe, for ERPs is to understand that no system's perfect, and perfect itself is a relative word. So when you're looking for an ERP, look for the value the system provides and balance it with your needs. And if there are non-negotiables, you know, in terms of processes, in terms of, you know, certain configurations, state them up front and stick to them so that after implementation, they don't become pain points. The second one I want to touch on is, you know, when a decision for ERP is made, it's a longer term decision. A client has to live with the product for a few years at least to come, right? So keep an eye on the present needs, but also look at your long-term growth and see how you know, a system that you implement solves the needs for today as well as you know, years down the line. So you're looking for a product that can be small enough for your state right now, but scales with the business as your business grows. The third one, which you've touched on, Jamie, is find a partner who's willing to invest in relationships, because no company or most companies don't have the bandwidth or the capacity to actually do successful implementations themselves and go you know, maintain the product longer term. So look for a partner who has, you know, the best of the client's interest at the top of their mind, challenges the client when it comes to solutions, challenges on assumptions, processes, so that the client actually gets the value out of the process, right? And then when you go through the implementation, you want to focus on a client, a partner who has change management at the top of their head, so that your organization's learning with during the implementation. Because once the project's done, and we've seen this quite often, is when IT shops take on projects, they come in, do a project, and then they disappear. So a client's left with a new system in hand, and you know, they don't know how to support it. So we're looking at partners who have change management focus and also provide like long-term support solutions, so that the organization's learning during the implementation phase, but also has any needs fulfilled after implementation through like a product roadmap or something. So those are my top 3.
I love that, Anto. And Anto can speak to the fact that the challenging the business people is very important to me in particular. I know that I think I've screamed in rooms that if I'm the only one asking questions, we have a real problem with this team, because I don't know enough about technology to be the only one asking questions. And similarly, I've been more than unhappy when consultants have done what I've asked, and then I had to live with the consequences of what I asked, which turns out to be a horrible situation because what I asked was not appropriate for the system, and but they were too afraid to challenge me, I guess, because they thought I'd yell. So, Adam, when you hear what Anto just recommended, what are your thoughts? Have you experienced a system selection that went badly, that you wish you did differently, or you had regrets, or if you have a success story, we'd love to hear that too.
Sure. I love that idea of balancing with the need, right? What the business need is. And, I said before, not a lot of companies these days have the appetite to take on the risk of a $500-600 million ERP implementation. But that's changing, right? And not just in terms of the appetite, but in terms of the technology offerings as well, right? And so cloud-based solutions offer, a lot easier things to step into from a scalability, from a total cost of ownership, a TCO perspective, industry packages, specific packages with also accelerators to help with the implementation. But it comes with a little bit of a cost, and Greg mentioned this before, is the cloud-based solutions don't offer a lot of ability to customize. You can configure, but you can't customize these solutions, and that's why they're so scalable. That's why they're so easy to implement and so user friendly, right? But I guess along with what Anto was saying, you really have to balance it with the need of the organization. And so you come back to this argument of, should we do best in suite versus best of breed, right? And what do we need, right? And so you really have to look at the organization and say, what's going to drive value, right? Or can we be out of the box, or do we need a specialized solution for supply chain? And should we be looking at something like that? And the cloud-based solutions today, they do actually integrate better, right? So whereas integration used to be a really strong argument for doing a best of suite solution, technologies today integrate a lot better. They can assimilate with third-party information and synthesize that data a lot easier now than what we could do in the past, right? So I think what I'm seeing is more of a trend towards best of breed applications, or more of an appetite for that. And one example, just to draw on my personal experience, Jamie, I recently went through a cloud-based ERP implementation, and it was fantastic. And just the accelerators, the industry specific packages, we completed the implementation in about 6 months, right? Which was just, it was fantastic from what we had to commit in terms of resources and distraction to the business. It was amazing.
That's awesome, Adam. So, at Amplify, we're reading Good to Great. That's an old book, obviously, and potentially what it states in there is even dated. And so in Good to Great, it talks about technology should be an accelerator towards a goal, not a goal itself. And a couple of you already talked about this, but I wanted to bring that back. Where do you agree with that? Where do you think that in today's modern world, technology has to be a bit more of a driver? How do you balance that perspective? And frankly, the pressure that we have as business leaders to be technology centric and to be technology forward. So Greg, when you're talking to clients, how do you get people's head around where technology belongs and whether it's an accelerator towards a goal or a goal in itself?
Great question, Jamie. So a few points that resonated with me with the input that we just had from Adam and Anto is, one of the things is an accounting system can do debits and credits quite easily. They're all the same. So one of the keys for success and moving from good to great is having an implementation partner who's willing to understand your business needs. And too often I've seen that not happening in the industry. You get a guy who can flick the switches and get it going, but it's getting somebody who's willing to hold on, take a step back, understanding we've got this tool, it's got functionality, you can use it. Now let's work together and solve the problem. And a lot of times what we recommend with a lot of clients is bring your business partners from within your organization or outside advisors with that functional knowledge to help you with that journey, because that's going to make your system so much better. the other thing that we've said is a lot of the systems are, maybe it's only got 80% of what you're looking for, but this other one system you're looking for, man, it nails this sales cycle stuff. That's 100%, but it can't do intercompany, it can't do FX, it can't do anything else. So sometimes it's look for what's the best functional fit for your organization and say, hey, we're getting an 80% solution, but using it at 100% efficiency is so much better win for an organization than just looking at, oh, I can do the sales perfect, so it's leveraging the resources. And what I'm pleased to hear is, with NetSuite, you're going to be that Western Canada partner. And that's something as well is we highly recommend when we do selections, we're looking for, it isn't just the tool, it's the implementation partner that, I've done more recommendations based on a partner than the system.
Oh, wow. That's it. That's interesting to hear, given Anto's 3 things that he pointed out.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. So Anto, we've heard a lot about customization and, best of breed, etc. So what is your perspective on, when you do best practices versus common practices versus when it's worth customizing or getting a plug-in system?
So I'm gonna go with some NetSuite terminology here. NetSuite, as a product, they've actually built a platform based on leading practices and implementations that they've done over multiple years with different clients. And what they've done is built out pre-built dashboards, reports, workflows, roles. There's a ton of things that are built ahead of time. So in situations like that, where you have a product that has, that's built on best practices, it's always an opportunity for the client to evaluate what's existing in the system and look at, how it will fit for their business. But there's always a secret sauce in the business that they really want to look at customizing or bringing into the new product. And that's where I would spend the time and energy in, customizing the solution to fit that secret sauce.
Awesome. It's interesting because one of the ways to make that easier is obviously implementing systems before you have bad habits or people that are very complacent with the processes and the way they do things. And Adam, you are probably an example of one of the most aggressive people I've seen do this, given that you put in Oracle Cloud at a startup that was pre-revenue. And I found that so interesting. So tell me why you did that and what the benefits of that were, and anything else that you'd want to raise in regards to that experience.
Yeah, sure. It was a unique situation for sure, Jamie. And before you make a decision to commit to something like that, I think you really need to look at what your business plan is and your confidence in that. And in this case, we were looking at a business that we wanted to scale very rapidly and also internationally, right? So that was a big driver behind it. And I think there was also some legacy pain points from the previous organization. And then also to add on to that, there was the idea of minimizing throwaway, again, going back to scale, right? But, I like to say, and you've probably heard me say this, there's no bad systems, there's only bad implementations, right? And so, I think with the applications and technology that's out there today, you can get 90 to 95% confidence that it will service your organization correctly. And the decision, I think, sometimes lies in the last 5 to 10%, right? And where that's, where I've seen that come up is, specifically in the life sciences space where, the deciding factor was having technology that could support GMP compliance, right? And so that was that, when you really look at to your question about, do we need to be different? Do we need to be specialized, or can we be out of the box, and can we be standardized? You really have to push the organization to what is that really critical thing that might be a deciding factor as to which technology to use, but most will service your organization correctly these days, right? Appropriately. So the one other thing I guess I would say is when we talk about technology being the goal, or should the technology enable and accelerate the goal, I think artificial intelligence is a really good example of that. This is a tool that is completely useless without human intervention, right? The only thing that's limiting artificial intelligence is our ability and imagination to use that. And so, you've heard this saying too, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's a great, saying to emphasize that you can't be limited by your technology, right?
Yes, because really, hammer is also technology. Just because it's not within a computer doesn't make it not a technology tool. We're going to wrap this up because we're excited to have demos coming. So I'm going to ask one quick follow-up question, but just a little admin here. Everyone has been pre-assigned to breakout rooms, but once you're in the room, no offense will be taken if you want to switch rooms. So there's lots of opportunity to get a demo outside of today. So don't feel stressed or worried about where you end up or where you are in terms of the room. But there's two rooms. There's the NetSuite room that Anto will do a quick demo on NetSuite, and then there is the Black Owl lease accounting room where Greg and Derek will do Black Owl. So you will be put in a room which has been pre-assigned without any thought. So please switch rooms if you want, or stay in the room you're in. And then there'll be a follow-up opportunity so that you can have a demo of the other on your own time if it fits your organization and your role and your responsibilities. So we're excited to get that going in just 1 second. But before we do that, I want to give the panel members great gratitude for everything that you brought up. And just one last thought, if they happen to have one. What do you want people to think about or remember in regards to this topic? Greg, we'll start with you.
I say the number one thing with this is plan, and it isn't just planning which system you want and planning how the project is. You've got to look at the end in sight. And I think Adam talked about that earlier, is what are you trying to achieve and when do you need to achieve it? So do it in steps, or sprints, as you're liking to call it now. Look for the system that works for you, but also critical is getting the A-team implementation partner. Too many times people, they thought they got the A-team and later on they realized they got the B-team. But there's ways to mitigate that during a project, but it's always, just don't assume it's going to happen with magic. It takes work on all parties.
Love it. Thank you, Greg. And Adam, yourself, final thoughts?
Sure. Go back to what I said before about not having, you don't need to have a fully built out digital strategy, plan for a modernized technology stack. Start today and, lay the foundation for building a culture of progressive technology development, right? And start small, like think big, start small and scale fast.
I love it. Those are great words. You sound like a consultant sometimes. Maybe you should consider joining
I don't get paid that much an hour.
firm. Greg and I are going to be like actively recruiting you after this, and whoever wins wins.
Oh yeah.
I feel I'm going to win. No, I'm just kidding. Anto, how do you want to wrap it up before we go into the breakout rooms?
I'm gonna go different. So I'm gonna get the business leaders to retrospect. One of the things that we commonly see is, as businesses grow, organizations find themselves in complicated IT setups with disparate systems that don't talk to each other. It's also a nightmare for the IT team to maintain these systems. So instead of technology being an enabler, it now becomes an overhead. So, as business leaders, I would ask that every one of you watch out for your technology landscape, have regular touch points, and review, decisions made earlier so that you can actually optimize from where you are.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to go into these breakout rooms. Again, you're welcome to switch. And just be patient with me. I'm new to the breakout room situation. All right. I just have to assign a few of you. It's very random, so there's no real purpose behind where I'm assigning you. So you're welcome to switch. All right.